The CDL is actually bad for Call of Duty. If you don't know what that is, the Call of Duty League is where arguably the best Call of Duty players from around the world, really just North America though, compete to see which team is ultimately going to get the rings and win the title world champion. I am not saying that I think competitive esports or competitive Call of Duty is a bad thing for Call of Duty. Quite opposite, actually. I think Call of Duty could be the next NFL or even the next NBA. But if we look at the current and recent CDL seasons, we could see that it leaves something to be desired. Obviously, opinions are like assholes, and while everyone has one, and this one is mine, not my asshole, just my opinion. That is a different site. But my biggest issue with the CDL, and I should be directing this towards Activision, is the ego that they bring and the ego that they have with each game that they offer. With a business that has so many layers to it, it does feel like the CDL is just so restrictive, and it comes across like a completely different game with a camo that just kind of parallels the Call of Duty title it coincides with. And right now the pros aren't having fun because they can't even scrimmage, and they're having their own snow day and going crazy, which lines up nicely because we are going into the wintertime. But not only is that an obvious issue of pros not being able to practice, but the biggest mind-blowing issue is the lack of communication, or showing how poor the communication has been between the studio Infinity Ward and the franchises. They needed to be notified in advance, not just a few days, that hey, the CDL mosh pit isn't coming and all these tweaks and changes are probably going to come after the first stage. And we've seemingly gotten all of this from one of the players himself, Envoy, former world champion of the LA Thieves, currently with the LA Thieves as well. And he sent out this tweet filling in the community, and well, there's probably a scroll's length of reasons why he shouldn't be the one doing this, for a lot of different reasons, mostly protecting him. But it should come from a support studio that completely focuses on addressing, communicating, and fixing these problems. And for a company that made $1 billion in 10 days, it still blows my mind why they can't allocate a budget for a small team of maybe 6 to 9 people that just completely once more fix, address, and handle these types of issues. Not only would it lead to probably more dinero, maybe indirectly down the long run, I can only see it being an addition, but it would only relieve the PR team from the headaches that they have to have, especially with issues that are coming out like this, because you have even bigger YouTubers than myself, but all YouTubers of all sizes coming out making tweets about this, making videos on this. It's just bad press for Call of Duty, and with a team of 6 to 9 people, it could all be addressed. And speaking on teams that need support, I feel terribly for these franchises within the CDL. They had to pay $25 million just to be a part of this, and really, there's nothing rewarding them other than being a part of a club of billionaires that don't even really care about the game, and I don't even blame them for it because they're billionaires, not gamers. For me, I could see them caring if the incentives were completely different foundationally. I feel like the teams need to be able to work with the developers as they're developing the game to help intertwine the gaming culture of their brand within the game itself. And I don't know, a small step forward of this would be delegating the responsibility of the skins to the franchises themselves. Give the franchises their own blank template and allow their own graphic arts teams to come in, fill in that blanket, do everything that they need to do, and send it back in for the developers to actually code and put it into the game. And speaking for advertisers and brands, there needs to be more ways for them to be implemented within the game. And I think once more, the solution to this is foundationally different. So I don't think it could be implemented in this year's Modern Warfare, but maybe going forward for the second DLC or even the second game coming out. And I think this is where the ego gets in the way of these developers, because they want a realistic shooter, but they cherry pick what a realistic shooter would actually be and the places that it takes place in. So instead of using imagination and creativity to come out with some of these environments, we're getting complete copy and pasted locations, which surprisingly, we're seeing legal issues come of it. But also, if you didn't know, these places weren't really built or designed with a 4v4, 5v5 FPS shooter in mind. Instead, we could have fictional locations that are eerily similar to ours and that don't have blown holes through walls or on fire and dark and whatnot, but instead bright and inviting and fun and pleasing for people to watch. And not only is it fun for people to watch, it has not a lot of visual clarity or confusion on the screen, allowing players to exactly have fair and even gunfights and not really have to focus too much on finding the weirdest heady. I mean, personally, I like the look of the CSGO and Valorant layouts, and Apex has some beautiful maps. I'm not saying that Al-Mazrah is great and these maps aren't good, but a 4-lane highway ain't it. Like, all I'm saying is leave room for billboards, flyers, find creative ways to implement organizations like Mountain Dew, Razer, Scuff, big partners within Call of Duty already allow them to actually be a part of the game. Just imagine Mountain Dew having ways to have like their own like little store within the game, having QR codes that if you go there, you can go straight to that campaign landing page for whatever they're trying to run. There's a lot of creative things that could happen for this. And I don't know if you could tell, but not only am I trying to think of the players, but I'm also trying to think of the advertisers. Because when the advertisers come in, the advertising money comes in, and well, that just means more cheese for everybody. And if you really wanted to take a step further and delegate more responsibility to the teams, allow each team to design one map that plays to their strengths and allows them to interweave their own sponsors or brand deals that they have. And speaking about being interwoven throughout the Call of Duty scene, where is the CDL within Al-Mazrah? Why don't I see Seattle Surge by the airport or down the Swahili village? Why don't I see LA Thieves by the oil area or in the downtown city? Where is Optic within this? I mean, these are huge franchises that pay an obscene amount of money that aren't even really being promoted within the game. The only place that you could find them is in the item shop. I know Call of Duty did something back on Modern Warfare 2019 for the Dallas Empire for when they won back at Stadium. However, this event of being interwoven from the CDL to Warzone or now the DMZ has been so rare that it is almost non-existent. And in my eyes, interweaving CDL with Warzone is only going to get more people interested in the CDL, bringing in more fans and more opportunities. I understand that Call of Duty is probably being built as a gaming experience and not as a competitive esport or a competitive shooter. And I saw somewhere on Twitter that Big Rob Energy was like, if you could take over the roles of Activision, what would you do? And as Joe Rogan likes to say, what would you do if you did your magic wand? I would go in there and say, I'm building this game as a competitive shooter from the ground up. In my opinion, we all love the NBA because we can go to the court and shoot some threes, go home, turn the TV on, see Steph Curry do the same thing and realize he's on a whole other level. We're playing the same game, but he's on a whole other level. If I go home and hop on multiplayer right now and do some 6v6, search and destroy or whatever, and then I hop on and tune into the CDL, it is so different that it feels like something that's not even remotely the same. And I think that in itself hurts Call of Duty more than any of the good that the CDL has done. So while you sit there and let this all sink in, I'm going to sit here and wait for the CDL skins to come to the item shop because I'm going to support the CDL because I love competitive gaming in this esports scene. But this is just my opinion. I want to know yours down below. Do you agree with me? If you don't, where don't you agree with me specifically in this argument or, this video? Let me know. Let's discuss it. I genuinely would love to have some communication with some of y'all. If you're here, please hit that like button. Subscribe. Over 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed, which just isn't cool. So let's go ahead, change that momentum. Hit that subscribe button, please. For doing so, here's a picture of my dog, Annie. She's my best friend, my adventure pal, my sweet little girl. She goes everywhere with me. And share this video with your friends so you never miss out on your daily dose of gaming and esports news. And hell, if your mom's hiding enough, you can share it with her too. I challenge you guys to make somebody laugh today, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Yep, nope, not in my house.